Front page, today's Winston-Salem Journal. Although they're venerable in their 99th year, they don't lead with the old, they lead with the news. In the one health story on today's front page, see the head, European Union to help cover costs of destroying cattle, the mad cow disease story. See how it leads with the future, and contrast that with the way the bureaucracy usually works. The bureaucracy usually has us leading with background of, last week you may recall there were stories of mad cow disease in England, and there were meetings at the European Union to decide what to do with it, both the health and the economic aspects. And if we're still listening, we eventually hear, oh yeah, that European Union to help cover costs of destroying cattle. The news approach, Speak Like the News, NCIH edition, is about leading with the future to inform, and where it's advocacy, to convince from the start. Let's go 2 for 2. The other local paper, the Charlotte Observer, that had the other local paper that had a science story on the front page. Doctor fights expulsion by Presbyterian. See the lead with the future approach, and see the ethical aspects of it too. By leading with the future, by getting the most fresh information in, it's also has a way of balancing a story to show the 2, or at least 2, sides of a story. So that there's 2 for 2 on the health stories on front pages of today's local papers. And also, if we expand this to science in general, look at this astronomy story. Wonders will fill this evening's sky about a triple sky show tonight involving the moon and Venus and a comet. Looking to the future, getting beyond that bureaucratic style of, many people have called asking about whether there were any more exciting things to see after the sightings of the comet last week. Well, there will be one more showing of it. Lead like the news. Lead with the future. Let's go more formally now into your booklet to page 2. And we see that we are already well into that first section, this first skill and the most important skill of Speak Like the News, and that's to inform and convince from the start, lead with the future. And that first subsection, inform from the start, let's think of a typical example that would come up in your health education. I propose that the format for the way you lead a health education get-together is indeed to lead with the future, lead with bottom line, give people something, a sense of direction. So as in the example there, a lead might well be in a discussion of patient care, could well lead with, first, do no harm, and then go back to where would this apply? When you're treating patients, always have that in mind. And later revert to your own experience in dealing with patients, both as practitioners and as educators. I remember early in my practice, we had somebody who presented with chest pains, and then had to make a choice. I could have gone in physically and operated fast. I could watch and wait. And there we see a development of a discussion, totally consistent with the educational, there's a slow process of education, of getting people to think in real time, and it's like experimental method of having the ideas develop as they would on a case involving a real patient. But you give people that momentum first of leading with the future with that start of first do no harm. Keep in mind that Hippocratic principle. And the contrast is the way it's usually been done in the bureaucracy, including people who, in my judgment, are otherwise great speakers, but they'll be so much better, and I urge the same for you, when you lead with the future the way the news does. And that's just for contrast now, for negative practice, just consider the traditional way it's been done of a speaker begins with saying, I remember early in my days in practice in medicine, we had a patient show up, said, my chest hurts. And I knew there were surgical interventions I could have done right then, but I also knew if we watched and waited, we might learn some information that would be valuable too. So what should I have done? Well, one source we look to is one of the oldest of all, the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. Well, I propose to you that a better way and still a consistent way of doing good, taking your time education is to get people galvanized immediately by leading with the future. How will that work on the job? Any comments from you? And you means you here in Winston-Salem and you along the North Carolina Information Highway. We have an agreement from Jim Least.
The future is an important one. It's a way of reaching some agreement on a direction in which you want to head without putting barriers in place to overcome. You're getting some common agreement. It's like constructive change. You identify where you want to be, and then you work back from that to figure out how you can get there. But it doesn't put the barriers in place to start with.
In advocacy, we'll see this as especially valuable. Thank you, Jim. A preview of our own get-together to see where we're going and where I trust we have agreement. Well, by definition, we do, because you saw the brochure and you are here, and glad to have you here. We'll be talking first in greater detail about how to improve your own teaching by leading with the future, and then about how to talk your viewers' language. And third thing is be positive. Fourth, we'll talk about pumping up your voice. And then after that, I'll look forward to joining you in the audience to learn about some of the great techniques of audiovisual work from Carolyn Taylor and Tom Findley, who is our host today as the technical person, the person who is in charge of this teleconference center here at Bowman Gray Medical Center. Let's go back to the science. Let's see if Lead with the Future, as fresh as journalism, is it consistent with good science? What aspect of classical scientific method leads with the future? By elements of classical scientific method, I mean things like in describing an experiment, where there'd be elements like materials, procedure. What element, in the left-hand column with the colon after it, what element of classical scientific method leads with the future?
Hypothesis.
That's it, Pam. The hypothesis leads with the future. We're talking good science here and good journalism.